Once upon a time, in the Sabi Sands Game Reserve, there were 6 young male lions who formed a coalition. Yes, people, this weren't just any coalition. This coalition of lions were the most aggressive, territorial lions the Sabi Sands has ever seen, conquering with pure violence and brutality. These were the real-life version of Thanatos, creating havoc and absolute destruction anywhere they go, taking territories. Everything in their way were just simply victims or casualties of war, or you could say their ambition. These lions breathed more fear into other courageous lions than naming it to little money Micah Kea Pimp Down, Pimp in Distress from Friday After Next. In their reign, every lion that came up against them simply realized they'd unmessed up bad, and they are with this. Hold this smoke. I mean, really. Truth is, many lions tried to test the resolve of this coalition. And let's just say, they're not around no more. These lions were known as the Sabi Sands 6, and they were a force to be reckoned with. I ain't playing. I mean, really. In their prime, they were simply unstoppable. Like the Chicago Bulls and MJ with the double three-peat, strategically smart and ferociously vicious. Hell, you could even compare them to the '89 Detroit Pistons. But without a ref, cause there ain't a chance you get out that game alive. Okay, these lions are more devilish, but you get the point. There's going to be injuries. I mean, really. Dusting everything that stood in their way, like Ja Rule with a promising career before he got into a feud with 50 and M. Why? You were doing so good. Why didn't you just let it go? This is a brutal case of bullies finishing first. Shouts out to Ja Rule, man. I'm a fan. But it was like watching a lion verse and hyena. Let's get it. The Sabi Sands 6 were brought into the world in various brides. However, they met up when they were expelled from their separate gatherings. They were about a similar age and size, and they immediately understood that they were more grounded together than they were separated from everyone else, and this was the characterizing thing about these lions. The alliance was made up of 6 lions. Makulu the leader, Dreadlocks, Pretty Boy, Rasta, Kinky Tail, and Mr. T, who was infamous for his outrageous ruthlessness, got his name from his exemplary mohawk hairdo looking like that of the Mr. D character from the A group. They were all noteworthy hunters for how impressive they were and had gained notoriety for bringing down enormous prey like buffalo and giraffe. The Mapogo coalition originated from Mela Mela from what was called the Airfield Pride, Sparta Pride, and moved into the Western Sector in 2006. And never have anyone in the Western Sector witnessed their level of brutality. They were more evil than the old boy Lamar and BMF because they spared no one. Like Holloman Giggs, not even a child, even the love of their life can get the smoke, but due to their bond he won't kill you. But that doesn't always extend the cubs. These lions will kill the cubs so they could mate with their mamas. Hard to bear for the lionesses. But you're safe, mama. The Mapogo lions pursued a new direction in the Sabis and hold of Mega Pride male lion alliances. The 5 related siblings were sired by a comparative Mega Pride alliance of 5 male lions. In their mission to rule the region, the 6 lions killed roughly 40 different lions, which included many fledglings, females, and opponent grown-up males. During the reign of Mapogo lions, they're responsible for killing 40% of the population of lions in the Sabi Sands. The oldest Mapogo male, Makulu, is believed to be unrelated to the other 5 lions. The story is that the original Sparta Pride lost a male sub-adult of 20 to 21 months of age in May-June 2000, and in July 2000, this male of about the same age latched onto the original Pride. As a result, Makulu was naturally bigger in size than his fellow brothers. Though not readily accepted by the lionesses, the West Street males tolerated him and didn't kill him, even though in typical circumstances, intruding males of his age would be chased off or killed. Field specialists accept a probable justification for his acknowledgement into the Pride was on the grounds that he might have been the offspring of one of the West Road males and a lioness from another Pride, consequently making him the Mapogo's half-brother. In the first month of 2006, the 5 sub-adult lions and Makulu left their Pride. They now had to fight for themselves, but by sticking together they increased their survival chances and expanded their endurance possibilities. This is the case of pressure making diamonds. Or in other words, absolute psychopathic serial killers with extreme aggression for others. These lions took pride in torturing and are a true definition of the words. Action first, ask questions later. The behavior of these lions were like nothing ever seen before. They directly conflict with social norms of the Sabi Sands, disregarding or violating the rights of other lions without remorse. They were like Vikings raiding England, killing the other male lions, eating the cubs, completely pillaging and taking their lionesses. Not raping, but taking. In the world of lions, if you fall as a king, you put the pride at risk. Lionesses will want to be on the winning side, which is often the best chance of protecting their cubs. As a king, if you fall, your lioness will have little problem submitting to the other dominant male. This alliance of lions had an inability to distinguish between right and wrong. Those infants had no chance if their pops fall. Those cubs would be looking more fearful than Kevin Hart when his dad's ass got beat. Because if their dad gets beat, they are getting eaten. And that was pretty much always the case with the Mapogo lions. They had difficulty with showing remorse or empathy, tendency to kill other lions horribly, raining down a terror of absolute excruciating pain on their oppositions, breaking backs and snapping necks, catching more bodies than Rico from the paid in full, and eating everything in full. Whilst living among themselves, the lions learned to be successful hunters. As they grew in size and experience, they were able to take down large prey such as hippopotamuses, young rhinoceroses, and even giraffes. According to reports, successfully taking down Cape buffalo was their key to success. During the buffalo hunts, Kinky Tail, also called Shaka, and Mr. T, also called Satan, were many times noticed being more forceful in cutting down the buffaloes. In 2008, despite ruling a huge region, the Mapogo coalition wasn't operating flawlessly because of internal contention from the brewing rivalry for power. Fights often broke out with the leader Makulu and Mr. T. A fierce closely contested clash then happened with Mr. T and Makulu, in which Makulu managed to grab and bite Mr. T's legs and win the encounter. Can play with Big Bro like that? Come on, Mr. T. Big Bro had to take a piece off you like Alistair Overeem's when Francis caught him with that uppercut and rained down on him with a horrendous punch in the face, ready to send him to the afterlife to accompany Harambe. But it love little bro, we can't all be grown like Money May Floyd and Bruner. But for now we may need some air. After this fight, it was observed that Mr. T and Kinky Tail broke off from their four brothers and headed east to control the northern part of the territory. During this time, the Sparta and Stick Sprite were under leadership by Roller Coaster Mollet. Mr. T and Kinky Tail attempted to sneak up on Roller Coaster, but the lionesses were having none of it and attacked both Mr. T and Kinky Tail, which gave time for the dominant male to escape. Because of this, both the brothers ended up going back to the western sector. A few days later, the brothers had returned, but this time they had serious backup, everyone apart from Makulu. Shortly after arriving, the Mapagos quickly took over the Sticks and Sparta Pride. The Mapagos now have 8 prides at this time, under their control. They controlled almost all of Sabi Sand, just leaving the southern section reserved from their control. Mr. T and Kinky Tail stayed in the eastern sector, while their 3 brothers returned to western Sabis and to join Makulu. It's clear to see that these lions weren't your average. They had a strong operation moving like Lucky Luciano on some mafia type is. Over the next year, the strong duo of Mr. T and Kinky Tail stood watch and over their area against numerous gate crashers. They was protecting from the east as well as shielding their siblings in the west, as the whole western part of the reserve is fenced, meaning the only way to enter was through Mr. T and Kinky Tail. And let's not fool ourselves here. These were the 2 most aggressive lions out of the 6 brothers, and they loved this role, welcoming all the smoke. In the year 2010, it had been 4 years since the Mapagos had taken over their first territory. They had protected the area from multiple intruders, but they were about to meet their biggest challenge they had ever faced. An alliance of 5 Majingilan males had entered the Mapagos region. These 5 siblings were between 4 to 5 years of age right now, and had their sights set on the rich space of the Mapogo coalition. The 5 brothers started to roar and sent mark the territory. Mr. T and Kinky Tail accepted the challenge as they have never lost a fight before. This was when they well and truly messed up. This right here was like when you're in the mafia, you see. Sometimes you don't know when you're approaching your death until it's too late, but when you play the Game of Thrones, you also play the game of death. Overconfidence can be crippling, or in often cases such as these equal death. On June 8, 2010, a young member of the Majingilan coalition was resting in the thick bush and when they realized Mr. T and Kinky Tail were closing in on him, they had not spotted him but was definitely aware of his presence. Once they got too close, the Majingillan male decided to attempt to flee from the two brothers, but it was too late. Both Mr. T and Kinky Tail grabbed and pinned him to the ground. It was a ferocious attack, and the battle sounds could be heard from all over the reserve as they attacked his legs, groin, and shattered his pelvis. The young Majingillan gave it his all, but sadly he never stood a chance against such a dominant force. However, he did manage to slightly injure both Mr. T and Kinky Tail before he finally died from his battle wounds. Mr. D had a gash over his eye, and Kinky Tail was walking with a massive limp from a damaged bitten paw. The Majingillan coalition was now down to just 4 members. They weren't gonna have that. Now these lions are going to go at it like Crips and Blood. Eye for an eye. I mean, they are going to be out for revenge and riding with a passion like Doughboy when Ricky died. This meant war. These lions were also clever hunters when they are on a mission. That same day/evening, all the remaining Majingillan brothers were on the move. It was clear they had feelings from the occurrence prior, and were determined to even the score and retribution on the Mapagos for the demise of their sibling. Under the cover of darkness, the Majingillan brothers managed to isolate Kinky Tail, and from Kinky Tail being already injured from the fight earlier with his damaged paw, he was still brazen enough to attempt to take on the 4 Majingillan brothers on his own. Kinky is truly a brave heart, or was in a hurry to meet Odin in the Great Halls. Why didn't you wait for backup, Kinky? Why, Kinky? Why? Sadly, they quickly managed to overpower Kinky Tail and pin him to the ground and rip him apart. Mr. T tried to rescue his brother Kinky Tail but had arrived too late to be able to save Kinky Tail, but Mr. T still attempted to take on the 4 Majingillan. The 4 Majingillans chased Mr. T, but luckily he managed to get away. After this, the Majingillans went back and finally finished off Kinky Tail. He was practically eaten alive. Now in this case here, if Mr. T didn't try to rule by taking on High Big Brother for the role of leadership, things may have turned out different for Kinky. You know, Mr. T had to have been hurting. The Majingillans proceeded to roar and advertise themselves as the new rulers of the area. Mr. T after Kinky Tail's death. Over the next few weeks, Mr. T was still seen in the company of the Salala Pride. He was still calling for his dead brother Kinky Tail, so instead of his brother hearing his calls, they was heard by the Majingillan males, who once again attacked Mr. T. He was beaten by the Majingillan's brothers, but once again managed to escape with his life. Mr. T returning back to his brothers. Mr. T ran back to the western sector and met up with his remaining 4 brothers. The Majingillan's males quickly whipped away the eastern part of the Mapagos territory and took over their pride after killing all the cubs of the former kings. In the western sector, the 5 Mapogo brothers were still the kings. Mr. T actually came back and slaughtered all his brothers' cubs. Estimated around 11 were killed over a period of a few months, picked off slowly. Without any remorse to his nephews, his brothers never attempted to stop him doing this. Out of the 5, Pretty Boy and Rasta decided to visit the eastern sector of Sabi Sands. Sadly, only Pretty Boy returned with some injuries, but Rasta had completely disappeared, most likely had been hunted by poachers or killed in a battle with the Majingillans, and is considered last seen. Why Rasta? The Mapagos suffered yet another loss when Dreadlocks never returned from a territorial patrol in late 2010. A few theories emerged regarding his demise, none of which has substantial proof. Mapagos and Solati War 2011-2012. Now, there are only 3 Mapagos left. Makulu, the oldest leader, who was about 12 years old and way beyond his prime. Pretty Boy, who was about 10 years old and his prime years were also behind him. And Mr. T, who was about 8 years old and still had a lot to offer. Despite losing 3 members in just a few months, the Mapogo coalition held on to power. The western sector was still their domain, and they controlled a couple of prides. In 2011, a coalition of 4 Solati males were pushed into the Mapogo territory by the Majingillans. Once the Mapagos learned of these intruders, it was a proof test of the strength of the 3 brothers in driving them back out into the southern regions of Sabi Sands for the remainder of the year. In early 2012, the Mapogo region was once more attacked by the 4 Solitis. During the short fall of the Mapagos, one of the females of resident prides proceeded to mate with the new males. This was all the Solitis needed, as the urge to find females brought them closer west deep into the Mapagos controlled area. The conflict was inevitable, and in February 2012, the Solidists laid a few blows into the aging Mapogos way beyond their prime. The Mapogo coalition was no match for the fury of these four young Solati brothers. This is a natural case of age catching up to you. In daytime of March 16, 2012, the young Southern males successfully caught Mr. T. They quickly mauled him, and the attack was so brutal, with a huge gash on his back, you could hear him actually screaming in pain, and a sound so horrifying when one of the males bites and snaps Mr. T's spine, paralyzing him. Even with this unimaginably painful injury, he still continued fighting till his last breath, never giving up. Mr. T death aftermath. After Mr. T death, the Southern males banished the remaining two Mapogo brothers and took over their prides and territory. Both Makulu and Pretty Boy became nomads, and they tried to challenge the two Kruger males for control of the Southern pride, but were quickly beaten by the strong defenders. This is the nature of the beast in the wildlife. Like it is in life, the king does not reign forever, but long live the king. Once former rulers of the Sabi Sands, they are both now nomads, constantly being chased by other dominant males. The old Mapogo warriors were losing condition rapidly, as they hadn't had any lionesses to feed them and became too old to successfully hunt for food themselves. They would often be seen falling during hunts, and when they did eventually succeed, the rulers of that area would just chase them off and lay claim to their food. Pretty Boy death. In late 2012, Pretty Boy passed away due to old age, starvation, and disease. Makulu death. Early 2013, Makulu passed away from old age. He lived considerably a very long time for a wild lion. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe and click the notification bell.